Hello. So today I wanted to really dive into the ultimate beginner practice because with the piece of peace sequence, we do the same 20 poses every single time. And that way it becomes actually all levels. And so you can start where you want and then slowly work deeper and deeper into each pose. But sometimes even those beginner cues that are given for the ultimate beginner, they can seem a little bit out of reach. And so this practice right here is to close that gap, to make it really accessible to a lot of people. And so when you start out and you come to the class, I actually always start right here in front of you. And we do a body check-in to see how your body is feeling. Let me know about any injuries you might be experiencing and to just come together as a group before we start. It's not vital that you actually say anything or share during this. You don't have to keep your video on. It can remain off as long as you can see me and hear me the whole time. So with that, let's dive in to the practice. So the first thing that we do is normally actually it's normally a standing pose where we put our toes together and our heels apart and we just start to feel our body and activate every muscle. But you can actually start by sitting down and then you keep the same toes together, heels apart, and then you're going to just sit up tall and you still have your arms, palms face out. A lot of people, the first few poses are actually pretty challenging. They ignite all the muscles in our body. And so variation is to give yourself more support. You can still start to activate root through the ground from this position. So we start by taking note from our toes to our head of every position. So root your feet into the ground and then lift your toes, spread them wide and put them back down. And try to, in this position, put some more pressure into your legs. This means your quads begin to activate. And then you're going to sit up tall and tuck in your core. So now that part of your body is activated. Palms spin forward, shoulders relax down, chin lifts slightly. And now you're in mountain pose, but it's seated. From here, we set an intention for the practice. This is your why. It's going to ground you and help carry you through all the different times when maybe we want to come out of a pose, which is totally fine. And just allow yourself to sink in. Why do you practice yoga? I personally work with the same intention for a long time. So once you get an intention that resonates with you, it might just pop into your mind every single time that you practice. And that repetition, just like the repetition of the 20 poses, is actually going to lead you to greater depth in your practice. From here, we're coming into half moon. And so what we're going to do is you're going to stay seated and you're going to just put your right hand down. Maybe if you have arm rests on each side, you can put it on one. You can put it down. You can even still grab your hip if you have the space. Then you're going to lift your left arm up over your head and reach up and to the right hand side. Drop those shoulders down and reach through your fingertips. Suck in your core and press into your feet even though you're sitting. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Inhale here and exhale here. Last one, reach to your farthest point, but you're reaching more up than you are over. We don't want a crooked body like this. We want it to be upright and reaching. And then on your next inhale, rise to center. Switch out your hands and then sway to the other side. See if you can draw this arm as back as possible, but it's okay if it's a little, that mobility will come with time. Same with if you need to bend this hand a little. Our idea is to stretch it as far as you can go without locking out the elbow. In yoga, we do all our breathing through our nose, and this helps create more heat in the body, which will help us to extend our flexibility. You can always come out of a pose early. You don't have to stay here the whole time. Inhale, rise back to center, and exhale, you're going to take a back bend. And so from here, just switch your arms to the back a little bit. You see, it doesn't, ideally it's fingertips up or down, but if that's too much, you can always just grip your hips. So take the version that feels right for you, and then you're going to just squeeze your elbows back together. That's the important part. And then gaze up, so your heart is lifted. That's it. No farther. This is lighting up my entire body. This is an intense pose. Even just in the seated version where I'm only glancing up, I can feel my heart opening. My legs are actually squeezing to keep me balanced. My core is tight in this pose. And with an inhale, rise to center, and exhale, you're going to forward fold. So we just do that in our seat. We go ahead, we press our chest into our thighs, let your chin curl into your chest. Hands come down by the feet. And you're just relaxing here. Gravity is doing most of the work, but you can still feel your legs activated because they're pulling the knees over the ankles. You can still feel a stretch through your shoulders and neck the more you curl your chin into your chest. And on an inhale, rise up. Wonderful. So our next pose is our lunge back series. So I have to move the kitty who likes to be in the way. So for our modified lunge back series, toes are going to come together. And we just stand up from the other pose. You can take as long as you want to transition from one pose to the next. And the cue is going to be to place your elbows on your knees and create a long spine. But if this is too much for you, you can put your hands on your knees and create that same long spine in your back with a little bit more support and a little more upright position. Then on an exhale, you're going to fold forward and step your right foot back into a lunge. Then we drop that knee down. If you have any type of knee pain here, you can always fold your mat like this and then stick your knee on it. Since all of these are online, you can also choose a place, like I do mine just because of the setup, on a rug until I have extra support automatically in every single pose. And so you come and you drop your knee to the ground. And so from here, you can go through the poses in a more relaxed way. The farther your foot back, the more intense and the stretch and the strength will be. The more close it is, the easier this position is going to be. Then you're going to press into your foot and lift, hover your hands by your foot, sweep the arms back into airplanes, palms face down, and then your arms are going to move first. The waist is still hovering before you rise at once. From here, if this is too much, try to hold it for as long as you can to build that arm strength. But you can also take prayer pose. Then we breathe here through the nose and out the nose. Inhaling here and exhaling here. On the last one, I normally cue for people to be able to take a mini back bend, but that's optional. Just stay here, and on your exhale, plant your fingers by your foot. And then if you're in this position, you're going to have to curl your toes and step forward. Get to this position however it feels right for you, and then we come back to those hands on the knees, flat back. Then we hands come to frame our foot, and we're doing the exact same thing at the other side. You might notice one side is way harder than the rest. The left side might be a little more difficult just because you have been tired from the other side, and that's okay. Hover the hands, sweep arms back, arms smooth first, and then our torso rises together. Wrap the shoulders down. We never want our shoulders by our ears in these poses. We're actually reaching through our forearms, and that's going to help with our grip strength. The more you lean forward into here, the more stretch is going to be in your quad. You can also, I like to leave the knee where it is and just actually tilt the pelvis slightly forward, and that intensifies the pose. Similarly, if this is too intense for you, just shift the hips, the butt back a little bit, and it helps with the pose. Hands come down to frame the foot. You're gonna have to tuck the toes, lift the knee, and step forward. From here, we're gonna rise, and we're coming into our balancing series. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put your two fists together, and you're gonna measure that out on your feet. That's how wide your feet should be. Make sure that your feet are straight, and so that the toes are directly in front of the heels. Arms come out shoulder height, shoulder width. So that's just straight out in front of you. And then instead of when I say lift your heels, you're gonna just lift one heel all the way up. And that way you can shift as much weight as you want to into that left foot to begin to build strength and try to press into it to go up. Then exhale, release, and then go to the other side. There's no cue to switch since we typically do it all at once. So when you hear 2 breaths left or around there, make sure you switch to the other foot. Shifting the weight as much as you can to pull it and getting some height, and then releasing down. The next pose we go into is the same one, awkward pose, but this time heels are down, and we're actually shifting our hips back into a squat. It doesn't have to be big. You can literally be in this pose and just sink an inch. Tuck in the tummy and hold here. On your inhale, you rise up. For the next one, you're going to be doing a variation of them all. But there's the option to take either of the other 2 poses. So I'm going to be saying knees together, lift heels, sink hips, and you're in this pose. But this can be a little difficult. So instead, during that time, what you can do is you can actually take another toe pose if this one's more challenging for you, or work on just staying in your squat. So choose one of the prior poses and just repeat it. The repetition is actually going to be critical for you in developing and getting to the point where all of this stuff is easily accessible. So after we do this, we're coming into standing head to knee. And so from this pose, the easiest way to start with it is you can come back to your seat. And then what I'm going to say is I'm going to be talking about shifting weight into your right foot. Do the same cues. Shift weight into your right foot. Bring your left knee up. And so right now you're going to be slightly higher than 90, and you're going to have 90 in your knee and 90 in your ankle. And then your hand palms are going to face forward. And you're going to hold here in this seated position. And what you're doing is before you're working on balance, you're actually building up this hip flexor strength a ton. And so that this pose is going to be more accessible to you. You're going to switch right with the cues and do the other side. This is also going to help you start to flex your foot in poses, being able to breathe. We never want to be pushing ourselves so much that we can't even breathe in a pose. And so if you need to do this seated, go ahead, sit down and just lift the knee. Trust me, this is giving my hip flexor a big workout. My core you can still be tucking it in tight. You can still be pressing in to your other grounded leg. On the exhale, that's when we come down. We take another balancing pose after this, it's warrior 3. So for here, you can always grab onto something for balance, but the way that I suggest you doing it to start is to simply step your right foot in front of you, about a foot distance, maybe 1.5 feet, and then you come onto your toes, and you press weight into your right foot. Hands can come all the way up above you, that way you're working on that steeple pose, or you can take hands to heart center. I prefer hands at heart center, but I think that if you're still working on that arm strength, steeple's a great way to continue to be able to press your palms together above your head and to practice that. And then palms come to your heart center, and then you're just going to tip weight into the right foot. You come onto the toe of your left foot, and that's it. You remain with your toe grounded on the mat. And as you balance here, you're going to feel your whole right leg light up, trying to keep your back straight, wrapping those shoulders down, still in that position. And then on an inhale, you step forward and to the other side. And you're going to do the exact same thing, and you're just going to place weight into your left foot until you come onto the very tippy top of your toe. And you're going to hold here. Having your toe down helps with the balance, so you can always balance with and then lift it up even further as you get more advanced. But to start, just come onto your tippy toe and use that a little bit to balance, and then let your left leg light up. This is a variation that's also really good if, say, you're extremely sore because you're very, very active and you did a really hard workout. You can also take these modifications. Step your feet together, hands by your side. We are going to come into a sun salutation. And so I put this in the pose because I want it to translate. So it's in the piece of piece sequence because I want, if you show up to my classes, I want you also to eventually gain confidence where you could walk into a live classroom and a yoga studio and be able to do these techniques. And a lot of them are going to have you do a sun salutation. So I added in here, but hopefully we just do 1.5 of them, and hopefully it'll be more accessible once I show you some variations. So inhale, we sweep our arms up, palms touch, and exhale, palms press together as we go through center and fold all the way to the floor. Tuck your chin into chest and then inhale, rise up. Palms go to our thighs and we create that flat back. Exhale, fold forward again, and then you're going to step back. So this in itself can be very challenging. So from here, you can just drop your knees, and regardless of the next few cues, just sink into a child's pose. And from here, you can rest. And it's actually going to be opening up your hips. It's going to be allowing your arms to stretch out fully, your neck to hang. And you're going to go here until you hear the cue to step, hop, or jump all the way forward on your mat. So I will have cued down dog or staying in child's pose, and then eventually you're going to rise and step your feet forward. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, fold again. Inhale, rise all the way up. The other option, for those who may be even stepping back in that fashion, is a challenge based off of injuries, mobility, or just the ability to get up and off the ground, which in today's society has become a lot more challenging for a lot of people. Then what you're going to do is you're going to inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, fold deeply. And for you, what you're going to do is you're actually just going to bend your knees and fully forward fold for this entire time. So I'll be leading through chaturanga, upward facing, downward facing dog, and then have step, hop, or jump all the way forward. And that's when we'll meet and you lift to your halfway up, forward fold, inhale, reverse swan dive, exhale, hands to heart center. So you can just stay in the prior poses that are more accessible, and the other poses will help you build the mobility and strength to eventually be able to actually step back with ease and find that mobility in your body. Then we do the same thing, but we're coming into our warrior two. So we're inhaling, sweeping the arms up. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, lift the spine. Exhaling, forward fold. And then we're stepping our right foot back and planting the heel down. If that is too hard, simply rise back up to standing. Step your foot back. Now you're in this pose. And then just bend your knee. Your heel goes down. And your arms come out for warrior two. So when we do this, it's going to be a narrower spot on our mat. And that's okay, because that's going to help us start to begin to build strength. If you feel like that's too easy, you can step your foot even further and come into a more traditional position. Drop those shoulders down and reach through your fingertips. Suck in the belly, and you're holding here in your warrior two. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. And I'll be cueing for you to windmill your hands by your foot. Instead, just step your feet together and then step back for the other side. That is totally fine. You don't have to go through every single cue that an instructor gives. Knee over ankle, it doesn't matter. A lot of people think you have to have this really deep where you're almost at 90 degrees here. And that's not important, especially when you're starting. You're just going to have knee over ankle, arms out to the side, press into the back heel. You want heel to either the arch or heel to heel alignment. I think heel to heel alignment is sometimes easier as you're getting bigger because your feet are actually spread a little bit wider on the mat, which gives you more stability. Then you gaze out over your middle finger. When you're done, you don't have to sink in deeper at the end. You don't have to windmill your arms down to frame your foot. You can just step forward and come into your mountain pose. So from here, we all just step our feet wide on the mat. And your heels are out and your toes are in. This pose is as hard as your feet are wide. The wider you take the pose, the more strength, the more flexibility it takes. The more narrow the feet, the less strength, less flexibility it takes. Place your hands on your hips. Allow yourself to reach your head up towards the sky, hinge at the hips, and come down. Sometimes, depending on what we're working in, there's so many different hand variations. I suggest if you're starting out to just drop your hands to the floor. But sometimes even that is pretty challenging. So what you do is So you use your chair, a block, a pillow, a table, and you're in the same position, and you just allow yourself to come into the pose with your hands resting on something that's lifted. So whatever you have nearby is fine. So if this is too high, say you don't have something that's the right height for you, guess what? You can come down onto your forearms, you can bend your elbows, you can make that the exact height that you want. And I have slowly over the years built a little bit of flexibility where I can actually drop my hands all the way down. I couldn't at first. It was my hands, I couldn't do a forward fold and touch the ground in any position. And right now, I can still feel my hamstrings going. So you can just use the chair. It's, even though it seems, wow, that's too high, like I can still feel the stretch through my hamstrings here. And so take the variation and just allow for you to feel the stretch all the way from your calves into your hamstrings. You can tip into the pose here and have stability. And then my goal is when you come out of this pose, the cues are going to be come back and take that cue, because what it's going to force you to do is rise with your core strength rather than kind of lifting yourself up. If you need that modification, take it. But for most of us, we want to start activating and building that muscle group, so some of the other poses are harder, and those little transitions do make a difference. So the last one we're going to do is a tree pose. Remember, as you come into tree, you can hold on to something. Find something that you can grab onto. Maybe it's even just the wall, right? So maybe you're holding, pressing your hand against the wall, and then shift weight into your right foot, and then just bring your foot to the ankle. Hold here. The toe can still be on the ground too, so you're getting extra support. And what I want you to focus on is bringing the knee out wide. So that's going to look from the front. The toe is down, you're holding onto the wall, and then you're going to concentrate on opening the hip. And you hang out here for the entire time. You can press your other hand into your heart so that you feel like more active through your entire body. Full participation from every single muscle group. And then we're going to switch to the other side, so you might have to turn to face the other way if you're taking this, because most of us will only have a handhold on one side. And then you come, take the same modification that you took. So leave your toe down if your toe is down. If you start to feel more and more steady, the only thing you don't want to do is press your foot into your knee joint, because you're actually supposed to be pressing your heel in, and we don't want to mess up the knee. So take either below, or if you can take higher, but just stay here. Focus on that groin opening and take the modification of your choosing. This pose is still going to be activating. You're still going to have to engage your entire left leg. You're still going to be opening up the hip. You're still going to be standing tall. You're getting all the benefits, even in this version of the pose. So let's come down to Cobra Pose. You can get down however you want to, but I do encourage you, if you are that mobile to be able to sit on the floor, no matter how long it takes, you'll miss some of the back bends, that's fine. Take the time, oh man, Nala, take the time and get to the ground. So use your chair, step down as much as you need to, find a way to get to the mat. There's something that's just so beneficial about laying on the floor, connecting this deeply to the earth, feeling all of the support the earth, the ground gives us in our life. So no matter what you do after here, some people focus first on the standing sequence and then want to rest. No matter what, don't end just standing up. Force yourself to get onto the floor, force yourself to feel your body on the ground, and practice getting that mobility so that slowly in your life, you can start to get up and down with greater ease. And this is practice. That's all we're doing. We're practicing. We're practicing being in this body. So find your way to the mat. And then, if you can, we're going to come on to our belly. And there are 4 different back bends that we take in this pose. But we're going to take them all a little varied, and you can always just take this first one for all 4 of the poses. And so for this first one, palms come right about mid-rib on the sides of the body, and we press our toes into the mat, which lifts our heels. And then from here, just peel your chin off the mat. That's it. You don't have to hover far, maybe an inch. Gaze is still down so that you're not straining your neck. You don't even have to press into your hands because you should be doing this just from a little bit of strength in your back. And then we release. One cheek goes to the mat, arms come long on the floor. After this, I normally give the cue to take a half fist and wiggle it under your body. Don't do that. Keep your palms by your sides. You can still take the half fist, but if you want to curl your fingertips, but keep your palms down just by your sides, and then lift one leg at a time. It doesn't have to be far. Notice how I'm taking this pose and I'm only an inch off the ground. A lot of people think you have to be so high in order to do this. You don't. Just lift your foot. Your muscles will activate the second your ankle is lifted off the mat. Reach back more than forward, and then you're going to place your forehead or nose on the mat. Then the other side, that foot goes, and you're going to lift the other foot up. We release, take the opposite cheek to the floor. From here, bring your arms out just a little bit further on each side and come onto your fingertips. Then we're going to do the same thing where we just lift our head and our shoulders. And then I want you to practice the same way we just did. Lift one leg and release. The other leg and release. And just alternate between these two legs for the duration of the pose. So you're not actually squeezing, lifting both up. Nope. We're just going to lift one leg, place it down. Lift the other leg, place it down. Keep your fingertips on the floor. And then you release. For the last one, it's a bow pose where we reach around and grab our ankles. That's really inaccessible to a lot of people. So don't do it. Keep your hands by your sides and just bend your knees. And then peel your head and shoulders off the mat and press your hips into the ground. And just stay here. This is a big back bend. You can even flex your feet, and it's not going to lift much. Like, you don't have to lift high, but you can just kind of start to pull away from the ground. You don't have to actually be grabbing full here. Exhale, release, opposite cheek to the chest. And then you're going to come up however you can. And we're going to go into toe sits. Yep, more toe work. So you tuck your heels on each side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your hands in front of you. And so you're almost in a tabletop position with your toes tucked. And then you're going to slowly come down as far as you can. Maybe that's only to here. That's totally fine. You can stay here. It's still stretching out your toes in this position. If you can rise up. But this is going to be really intense for most people. The other option is to simply use a block, a towel, a blanket, and you're going to curl your toes and you're going to stick it down. So the closer you stick it into the crevice of your knee and calf, the more support it's going to give if you're still staying here and you're still going to be leaning forward. The farther back, the more upright it's going to force you to go and the more intense the pose is going to be. So when you're starting out, get the blanket, get the pillow, put it really close, and then you start to go back, and it just gives a little more support and makes this slightly more comfortable. And then we come out. And we're gonna come into our camel pose. So from this position, you have a little gap, like 1 fist distance between your knees, and your nails are pressing into the mat. And then you're gonna take an arm variation. Palms down on the back tends to be easier, more accessible. And you can take it to the sides to start. The reason I don't cue this is because it's so easy to just use your hands and press into your back and try to get as back far as you can. And that's gonna just be detrimental to your spine. So if you take it here, know that that's just for support and to make it more accessible for your arms. And don't all try to press with your hands to get deeper into the pose. And so that's why I like palms down a little bit more, because it's a little harder to use it as a crutch. Then you're going to squeeze your elbows back behind you as far as they'll go, and then just lift your gaze to the ceiling. That's it. Hold here. You'll feel it. You want to be lighting up your legs, back bends come to the legs, and don't even think about going backwards. I want you to think about lifting your heart towards the sky. That's the direction you want to go, is up, not back. And hang out here. When you're done, we rise to center and we take a few breaths. For a lot of people, I know for me, the first 6 months of doing this, I got dizzy after camel every single time. Granted, I was not taking my own advice back then, but I didn't know better as a beginner, and I was going too far into it coming up, and then I'd be all dizzy because I was so tired from the rest of the yoga practice. And so I always cue a few breaths after camel right here. Find something to steady your gaze and just breathe. And that's going to be enough to realign most of the time in case you do experience the dizziness from camel pose. The next one that we do is rabbit, which is a stretch all the way through the shoulder blades. And so what we do is we just sit back onto our heels. Right now, this already is so inaccessible to so many people, and it's such a common pose in yoga, and it is really hard for a lot of people to get here. So use a blanket, use a block, use so many other things. Get as high as you need to here and ball up as many as you need to until you can actually firmly root your seat into something. It may not be your heels, but it may be a pile of 3 pillows. That's okay. Trust me, slowly but surely, some of those pillows will be taken away and eventually you'll be sitting on your heels nicely. If you have all of those pillows stacked, you're not going to be able to reach your heels. That's okay, you don't have to. Grab on to whichever pillow or blanket you can reach. And you're going to do the same thing through here, tucking chin to chest and rolling all the way down, lifting the hips and coming light onto the head and feeling the stretch in your shoulder blades. The other option that you have is seated rabbit. Sit on your chair, grab the back of the seat, tuck the chin into chest, and fold forward. But use your arms to create the stretch in your shoulder blade and connect your forehead to your knees. And then be grabbing the chair behind you to create the space all the way in those shoulder blades. You don't actually even have to be in that crouched position at first. I totally skipped our child's pose. which comes after our toe sits. So after we're doing the toe sit here, we do child's pose, where our toes come together, their toenails down, and we're reaching our hands out in front of us. Forehead drops to the mat. We press our hips towards the ground. If that's too much, you can leave your arms by your sides. If you need support in that pose, get as many blankets, pillows that you need to be able to do this position. And we hold here. So after rabbit pose, whether you were on the chair or whether you just had whatever variation you took, we come to seated head to knee. So for this pose, left foot in, right foot out in front of you. I'm going to talk about lifting our arms all the way up. And at this point, I want you to bend your knee really as much as you need to. And then reach forward and grab your foot. So bend this knee extra long, because guess what you can do? If this is easy for you, you can walk your foot out and this will create the stretch for you. But if you feel it and this is like pretty hard to grab already, then you stay here and you don't worry about it. And what you do instead of trying to push the heel is I want you to try to sit up tall and wrap your shoulders back. That is going to give you a stretch. And we just breathe. You can gaze at your big toe. You don't have to worry about curling when your knee is this bent. You can simply just gaze forward and really focus on lifting the heart. Then we switch it, going to the other side. So keep that knee bent as much as you need to. Reach around, grab that foot. The other option, if you have a blanket, if you have a strap, you can also take it, pull it around your foot, and sit up tall. For me, this variation that people would tell me to take, I personally didn't like it as a beginner. I felt like, A, I'm not a huge fan of straps, how they feel on my body. And B, I felt like I could reach if my knee was bent like this far, I could actually reach for it. And then I got a deeper stretch through my hamstring that I didn't get when I was using a prop. So I think that's something to explore for yourself because everybody is different. And there's so many yoga instructors who swear by using a strap to help you get into this pose. And in that way, a lot of times the strap is good because you can straighten out your leg and use the strap and just focus on sitting tall rather than forward folding. And so those are variations for you. But after this, we do both feet forward, bending the knees, sitting up tall. It doesn't feel like you're doing much when you have our knees this bent in this pose sometimes, but it's actually forcing us to compress all of our body. So all of our internal organs are getting a little bit squished, which they rarely do in our normal standing, walking, sitting positions. And we're forced to be able to activate all the way from our hamstrings through to our fingertips. And so a lot more is happening, even if it's not necessarily feeling a stretch. So don't worry so much about, oh, I need to feel a stretch in every pose. Yoga is so much more than just stretching. Sometimes we're doing things just to feel our body in new positions we haven't done in a very long time. From here, our heels come together for butterfly pose. You can take them as wide or as narrow as you want. The wider they are, the more in our outer hips it's going to be. The narrower they are, the more in the groins it's going to be. So find what's good for you. And this pose, you don't have to float forward. If this is already intense, once again, focus just on getting tall. Hang out here. There's also a lovely variation. Since we're getting into kind of preparing for Shavasana, our final pose, and laying down, you can actually take this pose and just lay back. And you can take Supine butterfly. Let the gravity do the work of pulling your knees apart. It's a great option if you're super active and sore all the time. I love taking this on my back and allowing gravity to just pull my knees towards the ground. Toes are kissing at the center. Hands can be by your sides, palm up, or I like one hand on my belly, one on my heart, and you're just relaxing here. To come out of this, I suggest using your arms to pull your knees together and then using your hamstrings to pull yourself up, because we do a seated spinal twist in this position most times, which means right foot goes in front and left foot all cue to cross over your right foot. If that's too intense, bring it right here. Yep, just bend your knee in this position, and then you're going to sit up tall and you're going to hug your knee into your chest. And so it doesn't have to be big. You might feel a stretch in your hip joint just from doing this. You will start to feel the spine twist, which for some of us doesn't happen that many times throughout our day. And we just start focusing on pulling our head up. So you notice a lot of times it's not about how deep you're going, but how much length you're creating. And that is a theme in yoga. Whenever you're like, ooh, I think I could get an inch deeper if I just shrug or crouch or do this, that's not going to be the proper alignment. It's all 9 times out of 10, yoga is about getting length in our body, creating space in our body, rather than just trying to go as deep as you can. Obviously, we do a lot of compression poses, but those, you'll feel the difference. Even on them, there's some kind of length that's being created. Other side, same thing. Just bring the heel as close in as possible. So maybe that's still by your knee, maybe that's all the way up, and then you sit up and you just turn towards the bent knee. So a lot of times we forget and we try to go away when we're new and we're not used to the pose, but we're turning towards the knee. Sitting up tall, feeling the stretch through our body. Breathing here. Preparing for our final rest. The other option, if you don't want to hug your knee, is you can put that other right hand behind you, and it helps you sit up taller, and it helps bring you in a little bit to the stretch. Just keep it as close to the body as you can. And release. Finally, we go into our Shavasana. So mostly I always just say, hands out and curl to lay all the way down on your mat. But you can get down here however feels comfortable and right for you. Then get a little space between your heels, palms go up, shoulder blades wrap back. Close your eyes and just surrender. A lot of people don't know what to do when you're first starting out in yoga, when you're given silence. And I know for many of you in Piece of Peace, that's not the case because you are meditators, so you're used to silence. But for those who maybe are joining us, who don't even have any meditation experience, then during this time, just connect with your body and feel how gravity pulls it down. Allow yourself to experience what it's like to simply be and live. You let go of any control of the breath, since we've been breathing deep through our nose and out our nose the entire practice. And we just return to natural breathing, whatever that is to you. And we allow ourselves to melt towards the floor. Welcoming any thoughts that come and not staying with them for too long. You can just let go. Embrace the busy working mind. Don't expect it to turn off anytime soon. It's working, it's healthy, it's got all those things. Right now, you're just accepting it as your body melts into the floor. Then we wiggle our toes and our fingertips, our wrists and our ankles. We bend our knees and we roll into the fetal position. And we hang out here. We give gratitude for everything that you just did. If this is your first yoga practice, congratulations. You just made a huge step towards facing fears, rewiring your brain to do new things, and beginning a new journey that I hope you stick with. You can give gratitude for the shelter, for the earth, for food, for family, nature, your higher power, for yourself. And when you're ready, you slowly push yourself up to a seated position. Once again, it can be helpful. Have a blanket nearby, a pillow, because you're going to want to stick it underneath your hips. There's no reason to try to be bent over or have your knees up here, trying to sit in a seated position. Lift your hips as much as you can or need to, stacking those things as high as they will need to be in order for you to feel comfortable. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Fill the lungs all the way up. Hold at the top. Exhale out the nose. Full breath in. Hold at the top. Full breath out. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Take a few more of these deep breaths on your own. After your exhale, hands come to your heart. I am so thankful for you completing this practice, for you just watching it and trying as much as you could do today. As we go forward, there are more videos and more blog posts that go hand in hand with this series, where I'm going to break apart every pose individually. That way you can start to work your way up to more difficult versions of this pose and deepen your practice and allow it to grow to you. So I encourage you, go ahead and subscribe to the blog post, and so that way you'll be notified as I post more and more vlogs and videos about yoga and this specific sequence. And from here, hands come to our forehead center. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. Thank you all. Have a beautiful rest of your day.